in 2010 was when I took the test the first time. And the owner of MLOA walked in and was like, "Oh, hey, I need you to take this test. You've got a teaching background. You can tell everybody else how to do it, and we'll do that. I'll put a reminder on your calendar." I had a whole team. I bet I had 12, 15 people on my team at that time. And so the morning I was supposed to go take the test, I showed up and the reminder went off on my email, and I was like, holy shit, I gotta go take this test in like 2.5 hours. And so I got a 75.
There you go.
I just screeched by, but it was the basis for my training later in life, was that you could get a 75 or a 95. I've gotten both, and you get paid the same. Yeah. So it's a good way to kind of get through people.
But your background before mortgages, though,
was teaching.
You were a teacher, and I can tell you,
you were wanting to be a history teacher, right?
I went to, no.
That's a
I didn't
fact.
know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was graduating from high school.
I feel like you told that to people when you went on
TOs.
TOs.
But no. So what I did was, I went to school to be a history teacher, but it was like not what I wanted to do. I'm graduating from high school. Everybody I know is going to college, and I'm like, I have a girlfriend that's going to the zoo, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I like to talk, and I like history, and I feel like I'll do this. And it just, I did my student teaching, and I hated kids. I mean, I remember it was high school level.
Put it. Yeah.
And so what? But what it was I had these different teachers that were mentors of mine, like friends of mine now from like high school, and I'm talking to them, and they're like, Robert, they're not all interested, and I did not account for that. I thought every high school age person was really into history, and so when I went into that environment where kids were like asleep in class, and like it was
really don't give two shits what you have to say.
It was so deflating for me that I was like, and I remember talking to my advisor, and she's like, well, get out now, because it's not going to get any better. So when I meet people that are teachers, like, I have this respect, because I could not do it. But what age did you teach?
I taught 5th and 6th grade first, right out of college. I did my student teaching in Olathe, Kansas.
Okay.
And I got hired at that same school, which was kind of uncommon at the time.
Really?
So I did my student teaching in 5th grade, and then got a job in 6th grade. And Olathe was really big about what they call looping, where you would have you would go from one grade back down to the other, and then you would go back to that grade again, so you could keep that same group of kids for 2 years, which
that's kind of cool.
Was really cool.
Interesting.
I loved it.
Unless your kid doesn't like the teacher.
I had all but one kid that didn't loop with me, and that was okay. As a 22-year-old, I had to be okay with the fact that they had different needs than I could do, and they didn't. And then I taught, I think, another year in 6th grade, and then went and taught 7th grade, kind of a watered down biology, and then back in the day, 9th grade was still in the junior high, or middle school, and so I taught physical science one of the hours, and that was painful.
Physical science.
So it was physics and chemistry. So it was.
That does sound brutal.
It was tough. I had 15-year-olds that. So at the time, I probably would have been 25.
Yeah.
And these kids were 15, and they had siblings older than me, and I kind of had the who's who list of entertaining students in my classroom. And it was. You guys remember 5th hour lunch? So you went to class for a little bit. You have to remember, like, you had class for a little bit, right?
And then you
went to lunch, and then you came back. These producers nodding, yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Different schools had it set up.
So
sometimes your lunch would be in between classes, but like we had 3. We had some.
Ours is always in the middle of a class.
This one was in the middle of a class, and so it
depends on the size.
You can't
of the
focus
school.
before or after.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't. Well, and you couldn't get a lab started before, right? Or you could maybe get the directions out. And then you had kids that wanted to go to the bathroom because they wanted to go, screw around with a kid that was heading to lunch, or they would get in a fight. And I broke up some fights, and it was I had 2 cheerleaders. First girl fight I ever broke up.
Really?
I had my head underneath the cabinet, doing a lab with some kids, and I think they were distracting me because they weren't ones that were normally engaged, but they were engaged today.
Yeah.
And the 2 all of a sudden I started hearing the screech of chairs on the floor, and look up, and there's all hair and everything going, and I had to, they're brutal, especially 2 girls. And I had to hold on. I mean, luckily I was tall. I mean, I used my size then a lot, be able to pull them apart and hold them.
Have you ever been in a fight?
No.
Have you ever? You've been in a fight? I have never thrown up. I've been punched twice. Both times it's because I'm convinced because the person couldn't process what I was saying, and was like, it must have been an insult. I must have been a smart ass. But you've been in a fight?
I have, in basketball and at a bar.
Okay, so the basketball thing is like, I'm kind of okay, but the bar one, how'd that go? Like, bitch, slut, I'll show you the bitch slut.
They were picking on one of my friends. You don't pick on my friends.
Yeah. Really? Nice. All right.
Well, no one just wakes up and goes to Johnny's and be like, I want to fight.
I disagree. I have known dudes.
Going to the Peanuts to punch somebody today.
I have known guys in the past that are like, what are you up to? What are you doing tonight? I'm going to go.
I'm the only chick at the table, and I'm the one that's
going to fight.
Yeah, but you're from like Springfield.
Yeah, I know. So when I was,
I'm from Independence.
When I went for my 1 year at Mizzou, on my, like the guys, I stayed in a dorm, the group of guys that like I hung out with were like these like wonderful, I can only say like shit kickers from like Gallatin and like up north. And it was just such a weird, but I just slid in with these guys. Yeah. Maybe it was because I knew how to deal blackjack, but it was, they would be like, what are we doing tonight?
Now, where are you from, John?
I'm from Topeka, Kansas, the capital of the great state of Kansas.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you go? I mean, you didn't go to school for mortgages, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Okay. I feel like nobody just is like, I'm gonna be a loan officer someday.
No, we just end up here.
No, I thought I was gonna be an eye doctor coming out of high school.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was like working for eye doctors and like I was an optician is what it's called. And I
like to be positive about stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. An optician.
That's what
the optician is just the person that like does the pre-testing and like helps you pick out glasses and trains you how to put contacts in and like all of that.
Okay. Not the guy that looks through all of the lenses.
No, that's the optometrist. Optometrist is kind of like chiropractic, right? In that it's like, it's like it's a doctor, right? But it's not on the same level as like a general practitioner.
I think that's the longest standing male relationship I have in my life right now is the eye doctor.
Your eye doctor? Oh, nice. That's. But no, I wanted to do that. Yeah, I went to KU for a year. I was studying biology, was my like major, and cool. Lawrence took its arms around me and decided I only needed a year of school. Yeah,
and so you learned enough out of that,
and then stayed in Lawrence for 3 more years.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was in school for like ever, like 5-6 years, something like that, and it just finally reached a point. So my I was playing in a band.
I haven't heard that before.
Was like, I was. I mean, in hindsight, college was, in some ways, it was a big waste of time for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it also provided kind of like this period of like arrested development that allowed me to like, do things like be in a band and make like a lot of friends and like kind of be creative.
Did you graduate with like a lot of student
racking up debt? Yeah.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah. I mean, eventually I got them paid off, but it was
still paying them.
Yeah. See, I feel super lucky to only have had that 1 year, and I had like a.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's like I think you're saying sorry. No, I had that 1 year, and at that time I had the Kansas Minority Scholarship, which, if you can't tell, I'm half Costa Rican.
Okay.
And
the coffee's great. I got it.
Yeah, I know, right? And so like I only had like like $4,000 of student loan debt. Knock that out, and it's like I see these these kids nowadays that we qualify for pre-approvals and stuff, and it's just like brutal.
You can't
30, 100K in student loan debt.
Like, I think you got to pay $4,000 to apply now in college.
Yeah,
right.
So I had 2 years paid for scholarship for basketball. And then went to Pittsburgh State. Didn't have a ton, but for me, it was the master's. So I have a master's in technology and education, something or other that I kind of got rooked into with my ex-husband. And somehow, and then one of the biggest things
I didn't know you had a master's.
I do, yeah.
That's cool.
Don't hit the table so hard.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm a talker.
Like that.
Yeah. So, but that's ultimately what, got me out of education.
Yeah, so you had to go into debt to perform, like to have for a job that like you couldn't get out of debt. I think it's a racket.
Yeah, neither one of, and you would look at my 2 sons. Both parents have undergraduate and graduate degrees.
Right.
Neither one of them went to college.
Yeah.
So, and doing well.
Yeah, I don't think. It's not that I don't think that I mean, I think there's value in college. I just feel like it's not for everybody.
Right.
And my son, Xander, my oldest, he's 20. So when he graduated from high school, I was talking to him. I just wanted him to know he had more options, right?
Absolutely.
And so we talked about, he had maybe a track for school, but early on we were talking about like the Air Force and something like that, military, because he's like a team player. He's super motivated, and we had a conversation, and it was basically the way I remember it is like, this is not, I want to go to college, but I don't want to go now. I don't know why. And so he ended up going he's in the Coast Guard now. Mm-hmm. But I just think that there are other options. And sometimes it's very difficult at 18 years old to be like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And like start down a path like that is full of like oppressive debt nowadays.
Oh, and I would have like hated to be an eye doctor.
Yeah.
Like the actual, I mean, seriously, the actual practice of that, like day in, day out, like, I love what I do and the flexibility of what I do. And like, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah.
Looking back on it,
It's funny because it is a job that like, I just don't know anybody who, graduated from college with a finance degree and was like, I'm getting into mortgages or, real estate or cars.
Yeah.
I mean, that type of stuff. It's sort of like, and I think that's one of the things that's wonderful about the job is you carry in whatever your skill set is from like that other stuff in your perspective. Like you and I,
absolutely.
I mean, John and I, like on a Saturday, if we didn't sell 20 cars, it was an issue, right?
I can't imagine the pressure of that at that time. Like, wasn't it? Like,
well, and each of us like 10 years younger than we are right now.
Yeah,
like,
but you know what? I was actually older. Since I've left that business, in some ways, like nature has like healed me to some degree.
Yeah, Robert Beal just had his 50th birthday.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. And the thing about
which is crazy.
It is.
It was a rager.
Well, and so the thing about being 50 that nobody really prepared me for is just how much it feels like 17. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like
I feel like a lot of 50-year-olds don't say that.
Well, because I turned 50 almost a month before you did.
Yeah, and was it like this terrible, oppressive thing that you're like?
No,
I mean, what's the alternative?
We talked about this. Exactly, and I know what the alternative is. I dealt with that a couple of years prior,
right.
and I'm super happy to turn 50. But yeah, I mean,
true.
I feel healthier than I have in a long time, and I eat better. I exercise more. I mean. I don't weigh less, but it's a slow go game, but there's aspects of it.
I just think that, I mean, and again, I mentioned, for my life experience, like the big moments were, 2 divorces and like this like career change. Of course, I've got like, my kids being born and all that type of stuff, but I sort of feel like now I have enough life experience to kind of see past some of the nonsense, and I have enough like, and then, at the beginning of what last year, 2024, like the market was, I mean, this business has been such a challenge.
It has been.
I mean, Jessica and I basically like went broke and like, we have like slowly like built back. And so so now I'm sort of like the things that I used to be like scared of, like I don't have that same level of fear anymore. And I wouldn't have that at 30 or 35. I could only have it now.
Yeah, I would agree. And at 30, I had 2 kids under 2. So things, just looked completely different. I was married then, life, and getting into mortgages and doing something completely different. I mean, I had a couple kids and changed jobs and all that in a not very long span. So I tend to look for the hard things.
I think the thing that John and I benefited from, like, the car business in terms of mortgages is that we got to like see transactions very quickly. And every single day we had to get in front of 3 or 4 people that were going to tell us no. And so we learned how to communicate really effectively in like those pressure type situations.
Processing rejection is hard. It's really hard. And I think that's
I thought you were just talking about processing rejection, like getting rejected from processing, which is something I've had to deal with many times before.
Well, there is that too.
I was in an interview with another mortgage company, and the guy across the table looks at me as if he like knows I have like messier than normal files. And he's like, so, what would you, no, he was like, so what would you tell me if, somebody that used to work with you said that you had messy files. Mm-hmm. And it just like, I was just like deer in the headlights. Like,
that's hilarious.
I don't know what to say, man.
That's funny.
So you, as a manager of loan officers in the past, like, I mean, is there like, obviously some people, you train me to be very thorough with my paperwork.
Yes.
You know, and then
That's
I went
how to get in with processing and with operations is
to create
be thorough.
Don't create as much work for them, right?
Right.
And then I went to and when I was at MBKC, I worked with Paige Murphy, and she was like as much. Do you know what I mean? Like super,
I did
super.
help train her too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but like I think she had awards for like the Queen of Paperwork.
Oh, absolutely.
So
she's amazing.
I've been conditioned to do that.
Which
and
I think, I don't know. And
Yeah, but how are they going to learn though?
irony,
You know, unless
irony of you
you got to
working with the
push
two
that
of us
boulder up the hill.
is something to mention.
What?
It's ironic that
It's not because
What do you
because
mean?
Kansas City is this gross
is.
incestuous mortgage loan. Everybody came
is.
from LOA like
But-
this or in
Oh,
LOA.
MLOA,
Yeah.
But for you to work for you to be trained originally by me,
Yeah.
and then to work for a loan officer that I hired into the business
Yeah.
True.
years ago, like I feel like that's a cosmic.
Oh, I
kind
think
of-
so too. I agree.
I think that's
Maybe
something
Emily's the
saying.
best to have ever done it.
I mean,
No,
I'm just gonna
absolutely
tell
not,
you,
but
like, I mean,
Not
I'm,
origination.
I still work with you, but I mean, Paige was fantastic. I
Oh,
mean, I
she
learned
is.
so much.
Oh,
And
yeah.
going back to when you were talking about like getting late phone calls, I
Mhm.
mean, both of you I'll have sent an email at like 11 and you'll respond at 11:05 and then we're on the phone like a couple, because again, our business happens like at crazy
It
hours.
does.
But no, I think that is interesting that, I worked for you, I worked for Paige. And then now, oh, no, let me get back to my point. There's got to be an archetype of like a certain type of loan officers, right?
Mhm.
Like basically 3 types of loan officers. There's the guy with the bad paperwork.
I feel
There's
like
the
we
guy
could
with
have
the
a good video on that.
yeah. I mean, what
Yeah.
would you say? What are the archetypes of like loan officers? How many are there? 3? Are there 4? Is it just good paperwork, bad paperwork, or am I simplifying it?
No, I mean, I would probably, you have the people who can just play, right? Like you have the Michael Jordans of loan officers, right?
Okay.
But in that, you have
Was
those.
that a deal just then?
No.
Okay. Stay
No.
focused, bud.
Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
but you do have the people who can just play. Like I think John's somebody who can just play,
Yeah.
right? Like he can get on the phone with anybody and can talk to them, can find their hotspot, like what their buttons are. You can just chat with somebody and you
Right.
don't have to be in person. You can be over the phone. You can do that. So I think there's that type. There's the person who probably was like me, who was the hardest worker in the room, who was the person who knew the guidelines,
Yeah.
could go through. And if I talked to them long enough, I could figure out their whole story and then I could put them together like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And I could make that work. So I was very relational before relational was a thing. Like I had managers who told me to not make friends with people
Right.
on the phone and not to educate them. Like I had those early managers that were like, you're dumb for doing that.
Yeah.
So you have that one. And then you have ones that are just, just overzealous. And I have one in my mind, but I'm not going to mention that person's name.
Yeah,
But,
please don't.
just
Unless it's
Rose
John.
throws anything against the wall. Like,
Oh, okay.
it's just, I'm going to throw it against that whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have that person who can talk to anybody, but yet they don't know the guidelines. They don't know how to do that. And then you have the person who can kind of do it all. So I think there's 4. So I think you have somebody that's got a good mix of both. But some might have fancy files and some may not have super
Yeah.
fancy files. So maybe there's 5.
Yeah, I think those 4 in any type of sales you
environment.
sort of have that, because
Mhm.
I've always the thing, and John and I have talked about this. So John is known as a deal maker
Well, so
for
where
his
does John
for
see
his
himself in
for his
that?
realtors, and that's
I feel like I'm a chameleon on all of that. I
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
I can like become
You're that
whatever I
one of those
need to
last
become.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
can just sell, or you can talk to somebody and you can educate them. You can walk them through the file. You can handhold. You can do all those things.
yeah.
So
And the opposite too.
You're right. Again, the
Yeah.
greatest to ever
It just
do
depends
it,
on
and the
who
greatest
you're
ever will
working
do it.
with, Yeah.
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in that, Robert?
I mean, I think that I approach everything as if it's going to blow up at any given moment.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
accurate.
and I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's like the healthiest way to approach it, but I do
But you are an
feel like
overthinker, so
but the
that's part of it.
benefit that the client gets is like I have like worked through it, and it's a
Mhm.
deal. John and I will talk about scenarios, and John's been doing it a few years longer than me, and I'll talk to him about a scenario, and he'll be like, "Yeah, that's a simple thing," and I'm like sort of like fretting about it. And I'm talking to 2 or 3 different people, and then it turns out it's like not a thing. So I overthink that type of stuff. But I mean, I'm definitely relational. I care about all of it. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where I want people to, when they get done with me, I want them to, well, one, I want them to like refer people to
Well, you
me.
want them to never be done with you.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
But I want them to feel good about the
Yeah.
experience. Do you know what I
That was
mean? But that's
nice.
just in general. I want everybody that I come across to be like,
trademark
I like Robert. I'm sorry, I was talking. I didn't hear what you said.
No, you're fine. Talk
Okay.
away. This is your
It's a-
Slogan?
podcast.
It's a
What is it?
slogan.
What did you say? You said
You never want them to leave you.
to be done with you.
Be done
Yeah,
with
you're
Yeah,
like, when they're
that's
done
my
with me.
slogan.
Yeah, I don't know if
Because
you
we've been talking about that. I
don't
mean,
know
it
if he
seems a
does
little
need a mic.
creepy, like, but yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right.
Maybe
All
you
right.
can, maybe you can wordsmith it up a little bit, but that's the concept behind it.
So
You-
let's workshop this here a little bit, actually. So one of the things that Danny and I have been talking about is, does the podcast like need a slogan? Like, does it need like, you know, and I don't
like
I'm
what?
not-
Like believe in yourself and never give up.
right,
Like that
but I
kind of
can't
stuff?
obviously be
Win or
that
learn.
quite.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I go
Like
I-
die, cry, hate. Like the opposite. Like oh, for sure. You know, and I think you're right. I think normally that is the case, but shout out to Fountain Mortgage. I feel like Fountain Mortgage does actually like live the slogan. You know,
Oh yeah,
Oh, they
so much
absolutely-
so.
I really do.
So much so that
Like-
at different times, considering the backgrounds that we have and the organizations that we come from, like we were not certain that we weren't being gaslit.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, for sure.
Do you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I mean, it is unreal. So I was talking to Randy Kroll, who's our GM at Toyota.
Right.
We were here. He was at my birthday, and we were talking about this. So in the car business, if you put together like if you put together your budget, like what your forecast is for the year, and you present that to like whatever corporate, it's going to come back and it's going to be bumped up for no reason other than like their reasons. And it doesn't matter if it's a down market, up market, whatever, it's perpetual growth, right?
Right.
It's just completely the most unreasonable
The line
thing,
always
you know?
goes up.
And then you get to, so say you have a goal of 300 cars at the end of the month, right? And you get to the end of the month and you got 300 cars and you call your boss and like, hey dude, we got there. And he's like, well, you know, there were 20 deals there that we probably missed. You know, it's just that type of thing.
That
We
mentality.
come to Fountain Mortgage and like Mike Miles, who I want to get on this show. I sat down with him for my one-on-one and I gave him my goals and he's like, that can be your stretch goal, Robert. And he like dials me back.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to figure out if there's like a camera in the room, like what is this? But it's been like that with him from day one with him. And it's really, again, I've been very fortunate. All the places that I've worked, I've had like, you know, managers and leaders that are even in this business that are really sharp, but it's sort of unreal. And I'm not just
Oh,
saying this
yeah.
because we're in Fountain Mortgage doing this
true.
podcast
Shout
and
out
like
Fountain
we're all
Mortgage.
Fountain Mortgage employees, although
Yeah.
they're going to eat this shit up, except for that part.
Exactly. No, we can't say shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. It's just kind of bizarre because, right, in most places, the goal is typically not attainable, you know?
Well, they
And
don't
I
want you to feel like it's
Yeah, they don't want you
attainable.
to feel like it's attainable. And here it's like I feel like we like have very attainable, realistic, measured, like thought out goals,
Yeah.
you know, which is
Yeah.
not the norm
No.
by any means.
Yeah, a lot of companies will say that they do that, but if you really do actually put pen to paper and sit down with somebody at the company, I think that's a win. Usually
Yeah.
it's, you know, you kind of have to do your own self. I'm that person that does my own self goals and, you know, has that
Yeah.
stuff. But I feel like here, especially with sales,
Yeah.
it's really important.
I
And-
think.
Well, I think the overarching thing is that like they're trying to create like and have created a like place where there's just like a bunch of good people that get along and like really like do a good job of like I don't know making this whole company thing work. And I feel like they would like rather have that than to maybe have a bunch of like problematic people that maybe could perform at a very high level and like make maybe the company more money, but like I feel like that's secondary to creating an environment that people like want to be at, right?
Well, I
For
think that obviously
yeah.
they got to make money, right? It's a business. I understand that.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
I think it's in Kansas City. It's a very compelling story. You know, if you want to talk about why you do business with somebody,
Mhm.
I mean, I want you to do business with me because I'm super charming and I'm sincere. But I mean, the company that I work for, I mean, we do all the like stuff that you know, all the underwriting in house, all that type of stuff. And then you just have people that are here in Kansas City or close to Kansas City. We got a couple of people that work remotely. And I mean, if you want to keep it local,
Right.
I mean, how else? I mean, there are other local places. This just happens to be my favorite one.
Right.
You know, I mean,
But it's like going to like McLean's, you know, it's
Yeah.
like going to the Peanut. It's like, this is a very, very
Johnny's.
local institution, you know.
yeah,
When we're here at 75th and Mission right
75th
now.
and
you
Mission.
know?
Yeah,
Looking out
Yeah.
the windows.
yeah,
Beautiful Prairie Village.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I have become really like bought into Kansas City. So I mean, I lived in Kansas City since 2001, but all that time in like in the car business, you know, I was working so many hours, I just wasn't in the city. And so over the last year, I've spent a ton of time like in the city, in the little haunts, in the little, you know, I mean, I don't want to go to Starbucks. I don't. There's good people that work there, but like that's just like not what I want to do. And so I find myself making those decisions on a daily basis throughout the day. Where am I going to, you know, I want to support local businesses, and you know, because it's people, it's the community or whatever. But Fountain, I don't.
Yeah, but if Starbucks wants to sponsor the pod.
Yeah,
we're not-
absolutely. I
any
mean, I have
sponsors,
no problem.
I mean, whatever we want.
I am
Walmart.
all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I just haven't been. I'm sure I
Dunkin'
just haven't been to the right
Donuts.
location. Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts.
Whoever wants to sponsor the pod.
Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. What do you think about that? You think we should reach out to? Okay. Yeah. All right. But the problem with that is that my wife would have an issue with me eating like those
Those
donuts.
types of donuts.
Well, it's like a
Because-
wine tasting. You just kind of take a bite, then
It's a
like
little
spit it out
sip.
afterwards after you're done filming, you know?
Just don't tell them that.
Yeah.
When all the ways that I sort of like game planned and mapped out this conversation, there was no scenario where Dunkin' Donuts was
Came up.
going to be
Yeah.
a part of it. Okay, so you are John. You are a globetrotter, right? Like you have.
I'm not a Harlem Globetrotter.
No, I know,
I'm-
but
He's
Yeah.
the real basketball star.
Yeah, no.
He's a
Yes.
globetrotter.
but you. I mean, you kind of you travel back and forth between. Somebody was telling me I say this word wrong, but Mexico.
yeah, Mexico.
Okay, I
Yeah.
get
Yes,
that
would
part
be
of it.
that, yeah.
Allegedly.
Okay,
Jury's
right.
still out.
He
right.
says it like I do.
And so you came back to Kansas City just in time to watch the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl.
I think
and
it's
be
my
part of this.
fault,
Do you
honestly,
think
because the
so?
last time I was in town for the Super Bowl was when we lost
All
to
right.
the Bucks. Yeah.
All right.
So sorry, Kansas City.
We should have after my party. You should have just gone back.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
that is true.
That's
We
true.
can do
It's
it
all
remote.
hindsight, Yeah.
Or we should have flown you out after. Yeah, we flown you back, but I think that's a
No.
lot of airfare. So you're going back.
I'm
And
going
so,
back
and
on,
so
on Friday morning. Yeah.
what is that like to be able to kind of go back and forth? I mean, I mean, when you get to Kansas City, you're like, oh, thank goodness I'm back in Kansas City. Are you overwhelmed by it? Like, I mean, what's the transition between the two?
I feel like it's like everything all at once, you know,
Really?
like I just like hit the ground running. I've got like all these meetings scheduled usually when I'm back. Cause like usually I'm back for like 2 to 3 weeks. Right.
Yeah.
So I've got to like balance, like, you know, meeting with like seeing my friends, you know, seeing my family, seeing realtors, getting my like house in order,
Yeah.
which never ends up happening. It's just like, yeah, there's just not enough hours in the day
Yeah.
and not enough me to go around,
Okay.
you know?
And back in Mexico, there is enough of you to go around.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like my like, yeah, that's my like refuge.
I was curious
Okay.
if you're going to
Truly, yeah, truly, that's my refuge. Like,
All right.
you know, there I feel like I'm in front of my laptop from like sun up to sundown,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like focused on work, and
Like, what's your favorite
yeah.
getaway when you're in Mexico?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I
You
kind of
know,
do
like,
like little like mini
what do you like to
getaways
do?
within my day and like explore different parts of like
'Cause you take a lot of
Puebla,
photographs and stuff. Like, you
Yeah.
do some photography. And
for sure.
I feel like I have some history pieces when I see on Facebook or Instagram with your photos and stuff. So, do you make a concerted effort to get out every day? That's like the weather's
Yeah, it
nice
just
to
kind of
be
depends on
able-
if I'm like feeling inspired or not. I don't know. Like for the first few months of moving to Puebla, I just wasn't feeling very inspired to go out and take photos. So I feel like
Oh,
I
really?
didn't like post anything.
I feel like history would
didn't do anything.
like just be prevalent there with the name like Pueblo.
Oh yeah, I mean all the like, you know, the center of town. You're talking about like 300-year-old buildings and
Right.
stuff, but like there's only so many photos of like beautiful historic colonial like buildings you can take. Same thing with like when I lived in Tulum. It's like there's only like so many, you know, pictures of the ocean that you can take, right?
Yeah.
So it's like trying to like figure out, okay,
A unique
how do I want to
perspective.
like document this? Yeah, but
I-
like not make it like just picture of an old church, you know.
Yeah.
I think that so
Which is they're fine, they're beautiful,
Or
but
put your timer on and you be in the photo.
yeah, no. That's
No.
I think one thing a lot of photographers just don't like to be behind the camera, you know.
don't like to be in front of the camera.
Don't like to be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Exactly. What I
Yeah,
meant to
I'm the
say,
same way.
That's what he
Yeah.
said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Just,
Well, so okay. I don't get that, but that's okay. So okay, so you're gonna go back there,
Yep.
and so you will get up. You'll go to coffee shops because you have like a bean thing, like a coffee thing, right? Which
Yeah, I've got like some good connections with like the local like coffee scene, I guess there.
Yeah.
And it really is like a scene. Like all of these like coffee shop owners are all friends with each other, and they all go to each other's cafes. And like
Yeah.
there's like one big roaster in town that like seems like everybody uses. Like every cafe I go to, it's like his beans there. So like that's who I get to, you know, make my like one-off batches when I fly back with 50 pounds of coffee in my suitcase and package it up for gifts. So.
your packing was very impressive. With
Oh,
all
my-
the mugs and your coffee.
yeah, like
and
40 mugs,
yeah.
40 like what are
not
those?
one
like,
breakage.
The
like
Talavera
handmade
pottery.
pottery in a suitcase wrapped. Oh my goodness, that made me
Yeah.
incredibly
Every single
nervous.
one made it.
What a wonderful! And you know, I drank from mine for the first time this morning because of the snow. I had to make coffee at home. But the thing about coffee that John is like, so you know, I go to coffee shops all day, every day. On a good day, I mean, on an average, I'm probably in 1.4 coffee shops a day if you figure it out. And but I always get the same thing. I get black drip, and John is like, "You're doing it wrong. You like try these pour overs." And it's not even real. I mean, I recognize bad coffee, but it's not even about to me, it's just the vibe of sitting in a coffee shop. You can meet people, you can have conversations, anything can happen of it.
For me, it's the opposite.
yeah.
It's like the process of it all is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like these like super heady like baristas are the same way. It's like trying to figure out a way to like get your extraction perfect.
Yeah. Well, it is something that there are nuanced flavors. And so there's like a depth there and a process that I feel
Kind of like mortgages.
kind of
Okay.
like
Look at
mortgages.
those.
There it is.
A
Okay,
little bit
wow. So we
differently.
There it
wrapped
is.
that.
Full
We wrapped
circle,
that
baby.
full circle.
There
So
we go.